Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of I Don't Know What I'm Doing with Friends, which means my guest today is my friend. Would you be my friend? Would you?
Um,
Would you? Anyways, I'm here today with Ratul Shah, which I said the name wrong, but you'll correct me later. And Ratul works at SAP, which makes the first guest from within the company that I bring to my show to have an incredible discussion. So, the way this came about, and I'm going to let him take care of the rest, is like, as you know, I've been writing extensively on how employee experience is a crock, how it doesn't really drive customer experience, how it's charlatans only that want to make something out of it because they can make money from it. And Ratul said, "Hey, I have something to say about that." And guess what? I have no idea what he's going to say, but I'm really looking forward to hearing what he's going to have to say. So I'm going to let him introduce himself and the topic and what he wants to say, and then we'll take it from there. Ratul, my friend, take it away.
Esteban, my friend, how are you today? Yeah, so that's how I pronounce my name, Ratul Shah. Others may pronounce it slightly differently, but that's okay. In the world of phonetics, everything is always a good thing to change. We'll go with that. But you're right, Ratul Shah, head of product marketing here at SAP Customer Data Solutions inside of the SAP Customer Experience umbrella. Happy to be here. And how I think this started was you threw out a fun little thought experiment on LinkedIn, and a lot of people jumped in on what the employee experience means for CX, but the way you phrased it was, how does the employee experience drive CX? And I was thinking maybe you were being extremely witty with the language that you use, because it's always interesting to think about how people use language to deconstruct thoughts and infer what they mean. And that's why it's really hard to get things down to 100 characters versus, pages upon pages to bring clarity upon it, but no one will read it anymore. So I guess that's why we're going to talk about it in a show.
It wasn't that common thing. The joke that everybody makes is like, I'm sorry for the length of my response. I didn't have some time to make it short or something like that, right?
Exactly right. It's too hard to do it, but
That's well. Thanks for assigning witty to my repertoire of personality traits, for lack of a better term. But I wasn't trying to be witty or semantically driven. I was merely repeating what I've been hearing a lot of people say. Right. My concern is like there's I use some stats in that post and I don't remember, but that'll be part of my CX minute later this week. But um, you know according to Rackspace, 94% of companies are actually undertaking customer experience initiatives, right? If you're going to be incredibly naive about math, and I did all the calculus in that post, that means that about one out of every two companies is trying to find a path forward on what they're going to do with CX as part of the mainstream adoption of CX. And if one of those two companies actually hears that employee experience is what drives, which is what most of the charlatans are saying, drives employee experience, then they're going to invest in employee experience, but not in customer experience. That was the wittiness, the initial drive of what I'm trying to say. And, I don't think that companies should invest in employee experience as a result, or I'm sorry, as a prelude to customer experience. I think that they're different things. And I think that they're properly invested to both yield results, but one doesn't drive the other. Don't you agree?
absolutely. When you think about what we always talk about, or what anyone does, and we'll go with your calculus, and I'm trying to explain this to my daughter. When you balance an equation, the equal sign says on what's on one side is supposed to equal the other. And in math, that kind of works out. But in reality, that's not always the case when you balance an equation. And secondly, the sheer amount of variables that you put in on one side don't often net the result that you're looking for. And I think that's the key. What is the actual outcome that we're looking for? So when you think about employee experience, if you ask a lot of people right now, it would be, hey, I need more pay. Does increasing pay lead right to customer experience? You're shaking your head. I'd agree. Does increasing training increase employee satisfaction, increase productivity? Does it lead toward customer experience or customer expectation, meet customer expectations? I don't know. I think that's the key when you're in, and how the post kind of evolved was really interesting. It started to talk about our employees' channels, or how do employees actually deliver the experience, or what is their role in the process? Do they create the experience, or are they the delivery mechanism? There's a couple sides to the
So
employee equation.
there's something that I would acquiesce to, right? Uh, Employees are part of an experience in certain number of interactions. And I said this repeatedly to all the people that were yelling at me that I'm a bad person and I don't like people. That's not true. I don't like anybody, not just people. I don't like dogs or cats or people or roaches or anything, but that's not the point. The point is like, it's not that I don't like people. It's just that employees are indeed part of the experience, but in a very small and ever decreasing number of interactions. So focusing on employee experience because of the potential that it may drive 10, 20, 30, 15% of your interactions is the wrong approach. I would much rather do the proper focus and proper investment on customer experience, and then don't worry about the employee experience. So do it separately, but not because of customer experience. And this is the part that actually drives me crazy, right? And this is the part where I want you to like tell me, am I being overly anti-human by saying don't invest in employee experience, or and invest in automation, or am I just being proper?
I think it goes back to the equation that we're looking at here. Which employee is actually the channel in which they deliver, right? We can all claim that when you call into a call center, that employee is having a one-to-one interaction. But let's take it a step back. Think about this. How many employees directly touch your customer? There's a large percentage of people. You can say individuals in human resources, individuals in finance, those who are responsible for building a product, maybe distributing it.
You said directly. Those are all indirectly touching the
customer. That's what I'm saying is, so there's a larger percentage that don't ever touch a customer.
But they affect the customer.
They affect a customer, but do they directly impact them? I think that's like an experience conversation here. So when people talk about, the employee experience, SAP has 100,000 employees. What percentage of the employee base are they speaking about when they say, hey, we need to? Are they talking about everyone? Are they talking about just those who are front field facing? Anyway, my point is I don't think that just raising, adapting, adjusting the employee experience will net the benefit they think about. Because the point is, what's the purpose or value or vision behind why they're doing what they're doing? And I think that's what the crux of what you're saying. It's got to start with the North Star of customer experience. And then when you break out what you'll do to impact and benefit, driving those employees that do that in a better way.
But then
secondary piece.
Do you change your customer experience? And I want to go back to something you said that I completely disagree with, but I want to finish this first.
Go ahead.
Do you really change the value of investment for each different interaction, regardless? In regards to how much human interaction there is. So, for example, you're gonna get, if you do things right, you're gonna get 40 through 70% of the interactions will be automated, right?
Mm-hmm.
Human interaction and automation. There may be bias, whole different conversation. We'll bring some AI ethicists here and have them argue that forever. They'll never go anywhere, but that's not the point, right? So the bias is inherent to anything we do, but there's no investment in human experience, in employee experience when it goes to automation. So do you really focus the investment on the 30%, or do you focus the investment on the 60%, knowing that by natural selection, that 30% will be well tended by the people that are left, which will be the ones who are really committed to it?
So it's kind of a trickle down economics. You take care of the big group and the benefit will ripple out.
No, dude, no. There's no trickle down stuff here. I was going to say shit, but I'm not allowed to say that anymore. So there's no trickle down stuff here. This is a pure Darwin, natural evolution and selection of the species. I mean, if you don't invest in people that are not good, they'll go away, and then the people that remain are good, and then they're the ones who are going to take the 30% that remains, right? So whatever. So I mean, do you then not invest in employee experience overall? Do you select specific interactions or channels, like you said, which we're going to talk about in a second, or something else? Or how do you actually make that decision?
I think it's a difficult one because I haven't seen a specific organization that I can point to in the way that they've nailed it. because I think it goes back to how complex your business is and what your model is. But to your point, I think if you're looking at it from a pure numbers perspective, you would invest in those that you think are going to drive the core parts of the business in your customer experience. And so I'll flip it back and say, Esteban, how do you experiment? How do you start to prove hypotheses within your organization? Because you're not going to make a landscaping change.
Usually with mushrooms, but that's not what he's asking.
I mean, you've got to start somewhere, right? Like you've got to test a hypothesis that is, if I invest here and I make this change, can I show measurable impact?
That's very interesting. How do you do that? Not in an A/B sense of campaigns, but how do you do that for investment in people and employee experience? That's a great topic. Let's take that one. How do you actually test a hypothesis on investment in people?
It's a tough one. When you go back to the scientific principle, you've got to have a control group and you've got to have a hypothesis and you've got to, start experimenting.
Let's make it simple. Let's not even make it that complicated. Let's make it less scientific, like, benchmark versus comparison, right? I mean, you establish a benchmark where you're today, you make an investment and you compare. But how do you make the decision and how do you actually do that? Do you do like, one at a time? Do you do 2 or 3 at a time? I mean, how do you actually do that?
I think the way that you would do it and you design the experiment is it can't be one-off. I think you find groups. Let's go with the customer experience professional. You find 20 agents, put them in 2 different groups, and you try to automate one and see what they're able to impact. So I think when we were having this thread and what was going in my mind when we were talking about employee experience, it's not as much as did they get comfy chairs, do they have higher raises and better training, but it's what data do they have access to? What processes are in place to help them really drive a better outcome? And I think that's where you're getting to. It's not that we're having a pro con, they all have better laptops. It's what are they able to do to impact the experience? And I think it starts with data. Are they able to get to it? Are they able to automate those processes? I was having this discussion with my mom this morning, and
your mom talks about data in the corporate.
My mom talks about when she goes into various interactions in the healthcare profession, how frustrating it is because people don't know what's going on. She's often confused as to the level of misunderstanding with those she's speaking with about the context of what's going on. And if there was ways to automate that, present information so that employees didn't feel that they had no idea, that doesn't go to training. Those who are trained to have a conversation can, but those who are presented with the right context, okay, this is a patient, she is of certain age, she has these conditions, this is where she's been in the past 3 weeks. Don't ask her the same 400 questions you have because we already know where she is in this. Let's go with the most awful word that ever came out of customers, journey. What do you do about it? And so those are the things I think that automation helps, right? The system knows. How do you get that into someone who's actually talking?
That is. So how extend that a little bit, right? What you just said. Let's assume that patient experience matters. I know it doesn't in medicine, but let's assume for a second that doctors actually care and front offices are actually competent and all that, which my
Exactly.
expert position, I know that's not the case, right? But if we were to assume that patient experience matters, how do you impact patient experience by investing in provider experience? Whether it's the doctor or the front office, doesn't matter.
I think it goes to the technology, and I think it goes to how you can automate what you're trying to impact. So for example, a lot of us work from home because of certain circumstances over the past year. Telemedicine has exploded. The groups that now have to support this interaction, they haven't been trained how to do it, but the systems, the data could easily help them. If you think about who you're working with, the end patient may not be as tech savvy. The communication you need to help them with, the system could automatically do that. But when they do have these interactions, it all comes back to what the data is. What is the context of where someone is, what they need to know, and how you need to address them. That's not going to be done at the moment of an agent taking this call or someone having this conversation, reading through pages upon pages of history and notes to be prepared. Let's be honest. A great conversation is something that somebody has prepared months for. But the reality is with the scale, the computers can help them prepare in a matter of minutes. And that's the automation I believe you're talking about, right? Looking across all of the information we have and coming to a conclusion of what they should be able to do. And then the human then presents that back to the other human.
So then what is the issue here? Is it like, better human selection or better human training? And I don't mean that in the I try to make it in the most positive statement that I can.
Well,
I understand the correlations of human selection, but
Well, I think there's a lot of differences here. When you think about, I think I read a stat from one of our friends that talked about a lot of people think call center agents need to be extroverts because they'll have better conversations. But I think some recent studies have shown that introverts are better because they tend to understand the problem quicker. They don't want to have a long drawn out conversation. They just want to get to the conclusion and get the individual off the phone, which is a better thing. I don't actually know, but what I'm trying to say is there's a huge psychological profile behind every one of us and what we do. That from a consistency perspective, that's where the technology helps, right? If you think about what is so valuable about these organizations at scale, it's consistency, it's repeatability, it's the frequency at which they deal, and the technology can add that framework, those guardrails to the human experience to help get whatever the situation is to the next.
Are you implying that the person doing the job doesn't matter as much as the infrastructure they have supporting them?
I'm not implying that because
you're saying it's access to the right information, it's proper data, it's the right tools, it's it's whether it's an introvert or an extrovert. I mean, it made a lot of statements, but the ability to actually deliver the right answer doesn't come down to the person and the training, it comes down to the tools that they have access to.
I don't know. That's a tough one. I don't want to answer that. And I'll give you a story of why.
What you just said, I'm just repeating your words in my words.
No, I'll tell you what, let me add another variable here. You go to a Starbucks drive-through. If you go every morning.
Not a chance in hell. But let's
just go with it, right? Most locations, let's say you go to the same one. Yeah. And if you go every day, you might meet 3 different employees that are taking your order or presenting your coffee, maybe 4. If you come often enough, you might meet a few more in the 5 a.m. hour. I'm sure the machines are the same, the blends are the same. Most likely the coffee is close on a daily basis. I don't know how I don't have that refined palate to know that Monday's blend was better than Thursday's blend.
But it's always the same blend. It's not a blend. It's an over roasted, burned out.
I'll let Adrian chime in, but my point is you can say if someone made your day by a smile or a thank you. So those are the things I think that are maybe inherent to the person, but the consistency piece goes to the training.
Now you're going to the next post I did, which is the Chick-fil-A experience, which is not an experience, but we're not going to overlap these things because I want to stay with 2 things. I like what he said, even though you didn't say it, what I said about what you said. Which is like, the person doesn't matter. It's just the infrastructure and the setup that will determine the customer.
Well, what I was trying to say is I think the person does matter, but not as much as the infrastructure. And the reason why I say that is for all the brands that we know and love, do you love them because of the brand or do you love them because insert name was the person that helped you? Like, I don't go back to any brand because of a specific person. I don't love.
Here's a test. Let's say that you have a problem with your favorite brand and you call and I don't know, Julie. Well, tell you what, Taylor, let's make it gender unspecified. Taylor helps you, right? And you have a problem, you call, Taylor listens to your problem, Taylor finds a solution, Taylor tells you the solution, you're resolving your issue, and you know that Taylor helped you. Right? With me so far? We're good. Taylor is awesome. 3 months from now, do you remember their name?
You went digital, but I basically heard at the very end, 3 months from now, do you remember their name? And
yeah, there's problems with the connection, and I do apologize, but the core of the stuff is here. Do you remember the name 3 months from now or a year from now?
Most likely not.
If you call a year from now with another problem and Taylor answers the phone again, would you say, "Oh my God, Taylor, so happy it's you. Last time you helped me so much."
very little chance of those things happening. For the majority of people, it's not about the individual person or the name. It's about the end result and how they made you feel. And I think that's the key takeaway here, that as an organization, you want to get more things right than wrong. And the investment in automation, the investment in data strategies, the investment in those things will go further for your ability to consistently deliver than, let's go with the term, employee experience. Because you're right, I don't remember the names. Most people don't remember the names. Most people won't write them down. After they write the review on the website, Taylor was fabulous. A year later, they will forget. They will
guess
forget
what?
that.
Next week, Taylor won't remember you either. So,
and you know what? The other problem, we don't even know if Taylor's not going to be there in a year. Like, that's the other piece with turnover, with opportunities.
Yeah.
I mean, the brand that you mentioned, you know, every 2 years they're turning over their staff on purpose, right? They're graduating high school.
Well,
they're not going to be there.
Their entire staff, not just part of it. The entire staff turns over every 2 years.
Yeah, because they're going to high school, they're going to graduate, they're going to college. So those are the things, right? So the employee experience isn't as important as the consistency at bringing up the employees are. And that's where the tech and automation come in.
I'm going to run a little over here because I want to spend 2 or 3 minutes, and I do mean 2 or 3 minutes if possible, so we don't go too deep. But you said something that I'm still trying to find the right person to argue with, or I'm sorry, to have a conversation with, right? You said that the employee is a channel. I don't know if you meant that or if you were just repeating things about the people said in that conversation we had online, but like I find that repulsive, you know, to compare a person to a channel. But you know, let's start that conversation, and then hopefully this will spur somebody else to chime in and bring something else to the table. Are employee channels? Yes or no? Come on, we got 2 minutes, man.
So what I was trying to say is, when you think about, I think communication is a channel. So the call center is a channel, right? The employee is a way of delivering that information. So no?
Keep going. I'm going to keep saying no for all the things you're saying that are wrong. Don't worry about it.
That's okay. I mean, employees are people. At the end of the day, they're people. And we buy from people. We like dealing with people. We think we do. But what actually we like dealing with is getting what we want and having our expectations met. Like, I don't think we care about who's delivering it. We care about the end result. And that's the thing. So for how businesses look at it, it is something they got to invest in. It's an infrastructure piece that they have to. The human capital experience is something that all businesses have. No businesses are completely automated. They haven't been, I've yet to find the business that was started by a robot, started by a computer, scaled by a computer, and delivered by at that point. But to your point, are humans channels? I don't think humans are channels. I think they sit within a channel to make things better. And once again, I'll go with, there are two sides to it.
No humans, employees overall. I mean, now you have a specific purpose-driven human versus.
But there are two sides to that, right? There's like there's the operation side of a call center, those who set up the infrastructure, you know, those who are like, this is the steps. And then those who are taking what they've built to actually deliver it. You know, there's the people who develop the IVR. They're the people who develop the call routes, the call scripts, the infrastructure. And then there are those who answer the phones. There are two sides to the equation.
Okay.
But I think for me, employees are still people, but they can always get better. And that's the thing. When you think about, when you look at the differences between the ingredients, when you get something delivered, the part that breaks is when the humans make modifications. You can order 1,000 pizzas and they'll never look the same. And the very different part of it is, there was a human, and that's just how it's designed, unfortunately.
You know,
so the more that you can automate, the closer to the consistency that you can get as a business, the higher likelihood that you'll have of solving problems and driving the expectations, the end results you want.
That's a whole different conversation that involves a put down of certain fast food chains that I'm not going to do right now. Because
it doesn't even have to be fast food. I mean, you can think about
as an example. I mean, you know, if you really go down that way, most fast food chains have automated people out of the equation. They're just basically button pushers, right? Same thing with manufacturing. I mean, you used to have people that would actually took pride in manufacturing things. Now the machine makes everything, and people just make sure that it goes in the right place, and only because, you know, the union said so. But that's a whole different conversation.
That
the
is
thing,
another
like,
point.
in wrapping this up, I do appreciate what you said about humans and channels. I will have that conversation. Hopefully, somebody will spur up at this, and like if not, I'll try somebody from LinkedIn to take on the bait, and then we'll have another video. But Ratul, thank you so very much for being in. I don't know what I'm doing with friends. It's been a glitchy, digitally bad experience because I'm a nomad lifestyle. I have no home right now, and like I'm in a bad Wi-Fi zone. But thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate everything you said, and hopefully we get you here some other time.
Thank you again, Esteban. Always a pleasure.